What's up everybody, Hayden here. So today I wanted to drop a new tutorial and I wanted to cover the water system that was introduced in Unreal 4.26. So we're going to show you how to add it to your project, set up your landscape so that the water can carve it as necessary, and we might even take a look at the buoyancy example. So the first thing you want to do is pop open an Unreal project, hop over to settings, plugins, and in the plugin search bar you're going to want to type in water. Now I've already added it, but for you, you're going to want to go ahead and tick the water box here and then restart your editor. Now if this is the first time you're adding this to your project, it's going to take quite a few minutes to cook all the new shaders, so pause the video, come back once that's done, and then we'll head on to the next step. Alright, welcome back. So now you should have the plugin installed and all of your shaders compiled. We can move on to the next step. So we're going to head over to the tab right here and switch to landscape mode. And the very first thing we want to make sure of is that enable edit layers is ticked. This is what's going to allow the water system plugin to interact with the landscape and carve it the way we want it to. So you definitely want to make sure that this is ticked. If it is not, this is not going to work going forward. So I would recommend making a pretty decent sized landscape, because when we drop an ocean in here right now, it's going to carve away a lot of that landscape. So we want to have a little bit of room to work with. So go ahead and set it up, click that enable edit layers and hit create. And once we do that, we've got ourselves a nice blank square bit of landscape here. So I'm going to swap back over to select mode, hit the Windows tab, and grab the place actors panel. And from here, we're going to search ocean. And then we'll go ahead and drop the water body ocean right into the middle of our scene. And as you can see, it has carved out the landscape and left us some nice little beaches here on the edge. Nice. Now, if we want to turn this up a notch and give our beach a little bit more flavor, what we can do is grab onto our water body ocean again. And as you can see, there's these spline points all around, which are actually what dictate the landscape shape. So we can grab one just for example and kind of pull it in. And as you can see, it reshapes the landscape, but the water system actually recarves it and kind of creates new beaches wherever we drop those splines. So let's change the shape of this up a little bit. Let's drop a new spline point right around here. We'll pull this guy back a little bit. Let's drop another one over here. Do the same. And let's drop one more in the middle and pull this one back further than those. And then this will kind of give us a little makeshift cove. It's not exactly beautiful, but it's down and dirty and it'll get the job done. So now that you've seen how we can shape the landscape, let's see what we can do with the ocean. So I'm going to go ahead and click it again. I'm going to jump over to the details panel. And in here, this gives us a lot of options on how to control the curves, the height maps, and quite a few different more advanced options. But we're going to keep it kind of simple today. And I'm just going to show you how to edit the waves. So that's all being driven by this water waves asset, which is actually the Gerstner waves _ocean. So what I would recommend is that you hit browse, pop this up in the content browser, and then I've already gone ahead and created one, but what I'd recommend is you duplicate and just create a new one called test, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it test video, and then we'll open that guy up. And you can see here we've got a little bit of a example of the water and what's going on with it right now. And we have quite a few options here to change up the look and the waves and their frequency. So for now, we'll do something simple. We'll go from number of waves 4 and we'll pump that up to 16. Give us a little bit more choppiness. There we go. The amplitude is a little bit high. Let's drop this down to like 25. Kind of smooth it out a little bit. Now the dominant wind angle is pretty neat. You can actually change the direction that the wind is blowing the waves. So this is really good if you're making a long stretch of beach and you kind of want the waves to all be pushing in the same direction. This is the best way that I've been able to find to kind of adjust that. And then the steepness is actually pretty nice as well. You see these little white sharp edges that we're getting kind of popping in and out. If you adjust the steepness a little bit, kind of bring it down, I've seemed to have noticed that that's what really clears up those little white choppy edges that we're seeing. So I'm gonna hit save, but as you can see, it's done nothing so far to our ocean here, but that's because we haven't actually assigned that new waves water asset to our water body ocean. So we'll pop back to details and pop that guy in there. And you can see it's made a little difference because we didn't really adjust it too much, but if we want to, we can open that guy back up. Let's go ahead and drop this or bring this amplitude up to like 6 so that all the base waves will be a little bit bigger and we can see a little bit more randomness in the water. So that looks a little bit better, but obviously if you want to fine tune it, you're gonna have to play around with it a little bit to get the desired result. So now that we've done these two, we can move on to the next step, which is going to be the lakes and the rivers. So we'll jump on to that just now. All right, we are back for round 3. So in the first 2 steps, we imported the water plugin into our project. We set up a new landscape to be able to interact with that water, and then we kind of tweaked the ocean a little bit to give it a little more flavor. So now what we want to do is add a lake and then maybe a little river that goes from the lake down into the ocean. So same deal, we'll pop open the Windows panel, place actors, and here we will type in lake. Grab ourselves a nice water body lake and kind of just drop that boy right in here. And as you can see, this has actually gone ahead and carved out a little bit of the landscape and made us a semi-realistic lake right in the middle of our landscape. So let's bring it over just a little bit. And then same as we did before with the ocean splines, let's right click, add a new spline here, and just kind of change the shape. I don't really like this triangle shape that we have right now. Do the same here. Bring this one out. And we'll do a couple over here just to kind of even it out. And one more right here. All right, looks good enough. So the lake is very similar to the ocean as it's driven by a waves asset. So if we head over to the details panel, scroll down, it is using its own water waves asset, which is still the Gerstner waves, but this is the Gerstner waves lake. So if you wanted to, I would recommend doing the same thing we covered in step 2, duplicate this guy and tweak it to your liking. But we're not going to go over that again. It'll just stretch out the video, and that's kind of unnecessary. So we have a lake and an ocean. It would be nice to have a little bit of a river that connects the two. So same thing, details panel. Let's grab the water body river. And as you can see right here, this is the connecting point. So the water is actually flowing technically downhill from this point. So I would like for it to flow from the river down into the ocean. So we'll just kind of flip this guy around, bring him in a little bit so they're actually touching. And as you can see, again, the river has gone ahead and carved out the landscape and given us a nice little river, and it even has a little bit of a current that flows in the direction that we want it to. So let's bring this guy out a little more. Just kind of stretch it. Again, not exactly pretty, but we're just kind of showing how this is done. If you want to clean it up, that is up to you. So now we have a cool little lake, river, and ocean, but they're not very useful if we can't make things float on them. So luckily, this system did come with an example and a cool little component called the buoyancy component. So you want to open up your content browser once more, hit settings, and make sure that show plugin content is ticked. Otherwise you won't be able to find this stuff. And then you'll head over, all the way over to content, scroll down all the way through your plugins until you get to the water content. And then in water content, we'll open up the blueprints folder and grab the BP buoyancy example. And let's drop one into our scene and see how it looks. Hit play. And as you can see, this cube now just kind of bobs around in the water. So what's going on is there's actually they're invisible on screen right now, but they have these little pontoons, similar to how a real boat would have. These little pontoons that are rigged all around each corner of this buoyancy example, and those are what essentially catch the water and enable the cube to bounce off of the waves. So it's a little bit of a difficult process to set up. I'm not exactly sure why they made it so difficult, because you can't visualize the actual buoyancy component, but we'll open this guy up and we'll take a look at the pontoons. So buoyancy, viewport, and if we go down, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different pontoons here. And it shows us their location, but it doesn't physically show us their location. So there's a little way you can actually kind of cheese it to see where these are. So let's go to the static mesh. Let's add a, let's just say a plane. Oh, excuse me, not a plane, a plane. Let's add one right there. And so let's go back over to this buoyancy component. Let's snag this relative location and copy it. And then let's go to this plane and type this location right in there. So this is pretty much where that buoyancy pontoon is located. Now this is just the 4th one, so we could visualize this multiple times to give us a better idea of where they're sitting. But realistically, this is something that you will have to kind of fine tune once you drop your own boat mesh in there. So in the next tutorial, I will do a deeper dive on how this buoyancy component works, how to set up pontoons, and how to make things float. So I think in this next video, I'll go ahead and create a raft in Blender, and I'll bring it over and allow you guys to download it so you can kind of test and set it up for yourself. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for checking out the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And if you do like this type of content, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed and left a like. And I think that's it for today. Hayden out.